Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vivai. Good morning, Rufai. Oh, thank you.
Now that the Judea bar is over.
It is.
Oh, yeah. You know.
It's happening.
Okay.
It's happening. Don't worry. By the time you
Very
come back next week, you'll have a
Okay.
story to tell.
Good.
Don't you
Amen.
worry.
Amen.
Don't you worry. Let me tell you
Yeah.
what's happening around the world in the meantime, though. A formal investigation has been launched as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits the scene of the Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad and met injured people in the hospital the day after. All but one of the 242 people on board the London-bound flight died when it crashed into a residential area shortly after takeoff on Thursday. It is not yet known how many people on the ground were killed. But what we do know is that one person, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, a British national who was sat in seat 11A, is the sole survivor of the people on board the plane. Despite some visible injuries you see there, he was able to walk away from the crash site and into an ambulance before being taken to hospital, where he remains as he recovers. Now, British newspapers, including the Mirror and the Daily Star, have referred to his story as the miracle of seat 11A. Now, the silver lining of Ramesh's survival is overshadowed, though, by the tragic loss of life. Of the 242 people on board, at least 204 bodies have been recovered. Family members have been giving DNA samples, which will be used to identify bodies, but we have seen images of those believed dead. Now, when we look at the images of people still missing and believed dead, they are including 169 Indian nationals, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese and 1 Canadian were all on the flight, according to Air India. Men, women, children, entire families on board this flight headed to London Gatwick. Now, in terms of the cause of the crash, what exactly happened will only be revealed by a detailed investigation. But the moments after the takeoff can be the most challenging in aviation, according to experts. They go on to say that the plane, which was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, was in the air for just 30 seconds, and says that the cause could be double engine failure, bird strike, which is notorious at that airport, or perhaps an issue with the plane flaps. We'll stick with the story and bring you updates as we get them. Now, Iran has pledged severe punishment after a wave of Israeli attacks on Iran's nuclear and military sites. Now, Israel had launched an attack on Iran aimed at dozens of targets, including its nuclear facilities, military commanders and scientists, claiming it took unilateral action because Tehran, the Iranian capital, had began to build nuclear warheads. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the attack, dubbed Rising Lion, was aimed at rolling back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival, adding that it would take many days. Now, the Iranian state media has confirmed the killing of Iran's Revolutionary Guards commander Hossein Salami in an Israeli strike. The United States, however, has insisted that Israel acted alone and is not involved in any part of the violence. But it is believed that the United States was aware that Israel were going to strike Iran. And there we have it. These are your stories. Love to hear your thoughts before we move on to the papers.
Very good. Iran is now saying, yeah, they're going to get a strike. This is minus all the other things that Israel has done against Iran and all this while. But the question I keep asking in the Middle East is, America, that claims to be the police of the world, what have they done to bring about peace? I don't support everything the Iranian junta does. I don't support everything the Israelis does. But in terms of matters of the Middle East, there must be a level of fairness across board. Americans also have their interests since the Iranian Revolution of the 70s, that their own man was kicked out and the Ayatollahs came in. They have definitely constantly tilted in favor of one country over the other as regards the instability in the Middle East. And that's why what happened yesterday is happening. They're now bringing their people up. It's so easy for America to prevail over the crisis when it starts. They cannot call out Israel with what they're doing in Gaza. Mm-hmm. People are dying, and it's so easy for them. And they'll definitely take sides. That's the hypocrisy of America sometimes. America feels that the moral police, they support the rule of law, they support the rights of people and all of that. But to call out Israel, that violates all of these tenets of democracy, all of these tenets of the fundamental human rights of people. Israel violates everything, but America cannot call them out. I'm not taking sides, I'm just balancing it out, calling out hypocrisy. As regards what happened with the air disaster, very sad.
Yeah.
My condolences to the life lost. But the guy told the story. All through yesterday, I watched CNN 18 in India, a CNN affiliate station. The guy actually jumped
Out of the window.
out of the window before the plane hit the ground.
Yeah.
So he said he just had the presence of mind to see that this was going to crash, and he jumped out of the window. His brother was sitting on another seat.
Yes.
He can't account for his brother. Air India has been known for a lot of issues. In fact, there's a video making a round online about one of the passengers in the plane, part of the plane crashing, talking about the bad services in Air India plane. It crashed into a place where you had medical students being trained. A lot of them were injured. About 20 of them were taken to the hospital and all of that. Investigations are on. Narendra Modi has issued a statement that's a very sad day for India.
Yes.
But on analysis, and I must say I'm not an aircraft analysis person. I don't have knowledge a lot in that matter. But some analysis made by some experts in this field show that the plane could not actually get a proper lift on. And there were a lot of parameters that show the plane didn't lift properly before it starts to build up and before it starts to climb. So something technical might have happened as regards that. All of that will be known where they get a black box. Correct. And investigations, proper investigations are held as regards that. But, big sorry to the souls out there that were lost.
Thank you, Rufai.
So devastating, and I think shook the whole world to the core. Just like Rufai, I spent a lot of time yesterday trying to follow the story. I followed the story from the British end of it because there were a lot of loved ones who were waiting for their relatives to come home. Of course, over 50 British citizens on that aircraft. Just devastating, especially when you look at the nature of, how a diaspora community is. So look at the Indian, as much as it's a huge community in the UK, they were saying that many families knew, even if it's from a distance, knew somebody connected to a family that lost somebody. That's the magnitude of that loss that took part yesterday. So some of the takeaways for me, of course, we had a mini debate in one of our work WhatsApp groups, which is, what do you attribute to the miracle of the man who was saved? Some people will obviously attribute it to a higher power. Some people will say it's luck. Some people will say, well, the probability of him being in a safe place. But I think everybody, when we get on a plane, is a moment where we all have a moment with our maker, or whatever we believe in. It's a moment. It's a reminder of mortality. And for me, that was this story. Like you said, it's a small silver lining at such a large scale of loss. But nevertheless, that was a huge takeaway. The other takeaway from me was just the reminder that Narendra Modi is such a hands-on leader. This man, if you remember when there was the attack on Jammu and Kashmir from Pakistan, he was in a summit on Saudi Arabia. He cut short his trip. He came straight back home to address that issue. He goes, whenever there are issues, even within, around the Kashmir area, there have been issues, continued issues with Pakistan. He continues to be on the ground. He's one of the first people on the ground when there's crisis. See him now. He rushed immediately to be at the bedside of this gentleman who survived. So for me, one of the biggest takeaways from this is, yes, we cannot avert some tragedies, but present leadership is just always a comfort to the citizens of a nation.
Thank you,
Okay. Stunning, devastating, most unfortunate, sad.
Yes.
The tragedy that occurred yesterday affecting Air India flight A1171 at the Ahmedabad airport, Patel International Airport in Ahmedabad. It was bad. It was very bad. 169 Indians on board, 53 Britons on board, 7 Portuguese on board, 1 Canadian on board, and a total of 12 crew members. Only 1 person survived miraculously. A man called Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, who was sitting on seat 11A, was flung out, and then he survived. His brother, who was also on that flight, Ajay, that's the name of his brother, did not survive. Now, investigations are ongoing, but preliminary commentary shows that there was an issue with the flap. The flap could not be released. 2, there was an issue with the lift because that aircraft, collapsed at 190 feet after takeoff in less than 1 minute. In fact, within 30 seconds.
Correct, yes.
And it crashed into a medical hospital. And then, of course, all of that tragedy. People on the ground were also said to have been affected. So 241 accounted for, but maybe more people will also have died.
Yes.
Now, that aircraft, Boeing 7878, is considered to be, which was launched 14 years ago, is considered to be, one of the most reliable, vessels for international travel. The other one being Airbus. But this is a major embarrassment again for Boeing. Boeing that has been having problems with, the safety issues, with labor issues, with congressional hearings, and then the new man that is there in Boeing, just trying to turn the place around, and then this tragedy again. A major embarrassment, even worse than what had happened in 2018 in Pakistan, and also in 2019 with regard to the flight, coming out of Ethiopia. Well, the British, they are supporting the Accident Investigation Bureau in India to find out what could have happened. But whatever it is, it's bad for humanity that this accident had occurred. Now, to go quickly to Israel attacking Iran. The major story here is that we face the threat of a major escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. Yesterday, when we discussed this subject, we said that the Americans were pulling out staff and dependents of diplomatic staff from Bahrain, from Iraq, from Kuwait, and now Israel decided to strike. Now, the Americans didn't want Netanyahu to attack, Iran. They had preached caution. But Netanyahu has done it anyway because he believes that the military option is the only way to deter Iran from its nuclear capabilities. There was a strike 6 months ago in October by this same Israel against Iran. They were able to, cool down things at that time. But this time around, there could be an escalation.
Yes.
With Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei saying that they will retaliate. The defense minister also says they will attack U.S. military bases within the region. And then, of course, you have the threat of Hezbollah in Lebanon, you have the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and you have militia groups in Iraq and Syria. Now, if there is an escalation in that region, all of us are going to pay for it because shipping will be affected in the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, and also the Arabian Sea.
Yes.
Beyond that, it will affect everybody, and we have seen that evidence in the fact that oil prices have gone up by this morning by about 10%. What is it called? WTI by 10.41%. Now selling at about $75 per barrel. The global benchmark, Brent crude, by 10.38%. Now selling at $76 per barrel. Translate all of that into what will happen. Even food will become more expensive. Transportation will become more expensive. So the world is at a very perilous moment. But I hope that diplomacy and good reason will prevail at the end of the day. Because Iran and the U.S., they were even supposed to meet, to continue with the sixth level of talks over uranium enrichment of Iran. However, one major story there is that why is it that some countries can have nuclear capabilities and some other countries are not allowed to have nuclear capabilities? When under United Nations Charter, we're told that all nations are equal. But these are some of the contradictions that we deal with in international relations.
As always. Well, thank you all for your submissions. Let's take a look at today's newspapers. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. Now, This Day, this morning, wades in, of course, on political waters once again. On the one hand, you have former Vice President Atiku Abubakar saying that he believes Nigeria is teetering on the edge of a dangerous precipice, referring to the country creeping towards becoming a one-party state. In response, you have President Tinubu telling the PDP that a one-party state is not in his plan, but says that it is his pleasure to see the party in disarray. Now, the Daily Independent also wades into the president's comments, but goes on to report the national honours conferred upon the likes of Alhaja Kudirat Abiola, Humphrey Nwosu, while Posthumous pardons were granted on Ken Saro-Wiwa and the remaining 8 Ogoni activists, and all of them heroes of democracy. Now, the Vanguard reports that Lekan Abiola, one of the children of the late MKO Abiola, winner, of course, of the annulled June 12, 1993 elections, has disclosed that former military president General Ibrahim Babangida has apologized to him, or rather the family. That's what he says, for invalidating the polls. He also urged President Tinubu to ensure the federal government pays all outstanding entitlements owed to his father, saying past administrations had failed to do so. Meanwhile, the New Telegraph reports the news that sustained local refining capacity is shrinking importation by 61%. This is as the NMDPRA reported a drop in PMS imports of around 30 million litres over an 8-month period. And on The Guardian, we see their article marking the International Blood Donor Day, with news of massive shortages of blood supply vis-a-vis national demand, which has put accident and emergency services here in Nigeria in dire straits, with several blood banks nearly empty nationwide. There are waning voluntary donations, a lack of awareness, and unfounded cultural beliefs that have contributed to essentially this deprivation of blood facilities, 80% of blood demand by sick Nigerians. Go ahead, very quickly.
Okay, very quickly. I just wanted to say it was a good thing that President Tinubu gave national honor to Mr. Sam Amuka Pem,
Yes, on
who
his
is
birthday.
exactly 90 today.
Yes.
He couldn't have been given a better, birthday present. And to add to the names that are missing on the list, Professor Patu Tome should have been on that list. Senator Bokno Akirele should have been on that list. Alhaji Gani Udaudu should have been on that list. Olisa Agbakoba should have been on that list. These were people who were part of the struggle. But in any case, as I said, the consolation is that you can't honor everybody now.
Even
maybe they will have
should have been on that list.
Maybe they will have another opportunity
sure.
later in the year.
Well,
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Adefemi.